present. Alderman Nicholson is excused. Oh, sorry. We need that. That was just like a warm-up.
We're good to go and the camera's rolling.
The Parks Committee will come to order, and we'll note Alderman Johnson and Alderman Burnett, and myself, Alderman Weary, are present. Alderman Nicholson is excused. Can I have an approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson. Anything you want to change? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
If you could just repeat who made the motion,
Sure.
so I was a little behind schedule there.
That's right, Burnett and Johnson. If we're going too fast, just throw something at me. Pander. Not you. No.
Everybody's teed up.
So, but-
Okay, now approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Just give me a moment.
Sure.
It's a little slow.
Brewers in first half.
Okay, we are ready for item 1.
All right. Item number 1, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder LaFave to brighten up the parks with colorful fences and painted tennis or basketball courts.
I guess what I'd like to
You
do
wanna
is
come up
open
and-
it up for discussion.
I would like,
I guess if you want to
constituent
open the
here
floor.
made the request. He'll give us name and address, and then he's the one who made the request to me, so I'll let him just.
I'd like to make a motion to open the floor for interested parties.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, seconded by Alderman Johnson to open the floor for interested parties. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Just need your name and address, sir.
Hi, my name's Paul Busher, 1120 Elizabeth, number 1. And I go to the parks a lot, and I notice a lot, there hasn't been as much progress as I'd like to see as far as the way parks are now. You know, like cell phones have really advanced, and people spend a lot of time on their cell phones because people have paid a lot of attention to making them attractive. The parks, like the basketball courts, haven't changed since the 80s. They put the 3-point line in, and they used to have poles, but people kept running the poles, so they put the arch stanchion in. Since then, they really haven't changed. And the way you paint a court, or the way the court looks, attracts different people. If you had it black and silver with skulls, it's going to attract certain type of people. If you painted it pink, it'd be a different type of people you're going to attract. So I'd like to request that they paint the basketball courts. I know, like right now, they're painting butterflies, they've been painting frogs in Madison, they paint cows, and they paint buckies. It'd be nice if they had sort of like made the courts like billboards. I know at Mason and Monroe, they have a billboard there, and I see tourists all the time stopping by and getting their picture taken. So it'd be nicer if the parks were more attractive. As far as fences, I think they started putting hurricane fences up around 1970, give or take a few years, and there are thousands of miles of the chain link gray fences in the county. And now they're switching to more colorful fences, but just the coated fences actually last longer. So if you get coated fences, you could have like, let's see, like Red Smith could have red fences. Around East High, you could have red, purple around West. You know, colored fences that would be more attractive. And then like at the aquatic center, you could have an aquatic, aqua-colored fence. And so I was just hoping to beautify the basketball courts, the tennis courts, and that's.
Okay. Any questions on the committee, or did you have anywhere in mind that you think would be a good spot to start?
Like a basketball courts? On Eastman, there's Farland Park, and there's the 2 courts at Eastman Park. I know there's no lighted courts in town. If you had lights, I don't know. There's different ways you could paint it. It could be like a mural, or you could, instead of painting them white, you could paint like just neon colors, or you could block paint it, like there's the lane area, the circle area, the 3-point area. You can paint them all different colors. I went to a website called Bright Basketball Courts, and they have Bright Tennis Courts, and there's silhouette athletes in action, and they have different things that you can put on a basketball court, so there's different levels you can go to. I know we're painting these triangles now in town, and people are actually paying to paint the triangles. We could have schools involved painting the basketball courts. You can paint the backboards even if you want to. Right now they just paint the pink box around the above the rim. But there's some really beautiful courts online, and I like to attract more people to the parks to enjoy them. And right now people they're always telling you what not to do. You know, don't smoke, don't drink, don't do drugs, don't do opioids. Instead, we should have things that people want to do. Focus on the positive and get people exercising. One of the there's a lot of weight problems and exercise problems in the area, and things like there's the what is that, the Ninja, American Ninja. If we had some like American Ninja stuff in the parks, get people to the parks. I know we have skateboard parks, which are really nice, but to buy in to go to a skateboard park, you're probably going to get a board and knee pads. It's going to cost you over $100 usually to start. But if you had like an American Ninja with bright, colorful things, that might get people more to the parks.
All right. Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you. Anyone else here for this item?
Motion to return to regular order of business.
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alder Johnson to return to regular order. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. What are your wishes? Otherwise, staff, do you?
Yeah, I can add to that a little bit. So I did a little research just to look at costs and what how we could accomplish this. So in the past for chain link fence, when I first started 18 years ago, basically everything in the parks was galvanized fence. And it was the most economical way to do it. Over the last 5 years or so, we've really been trying to improve the aesthetics a little bit, and we've been doing more and more black chain link fencing. Which is a vinyl coated fencing. As he mentioned in his presentation, that vinyl coating fencing doesn't rust as quickly, it looks a little nicer. The standard colors that are available to local fence contractors are green, brown, and black, and that's it. And the cost for that fencing is about 45% higher than standard chain link fence. If we want to go with any other color, there are other colors available to get more vibrant, but all of that would be a custom order for any fence contractor in the area. Nobody stocks that material, and it's not purchased that often, but they can make it. What I've been told by one fence contractor is you can expect double the cost of the black fence to do a custom color. Now, does it make sense in some locations to do that? It might on a case-by-case basis. So, we can look at that as we go forward with projects and decide where it makes sense to do that. It would be difficult to fit that into the budget and do that in every single situation, but it might make sense periodically if that's the desired look you're going for. What we wouldn't want to do is paint a fence that color with, just standard paint, because that's just going to chip away and it's just not going to hold up over time. As far as the basketball courts and tennis courts, the only method that we would really consider as a park staff is if we went with a standard color coat system instead of a painted system. You can paint it, but the painting takes regular maintenance. You have to paint it frequently, and the bigger concern is with the paint, it can get slippery when it gets wet. So what we would approve is using a color coat system similar to a tennis court. That's a proven industry standard for both tennis courts and basketball courts. You can go with intricate designs, which adds cost to do the designs, obviously, versus just one color. And the colors do cost a little bit more, too. For example, in our tennis courts, a typical tennis court, 2 courts, cost about $18,000 to do color coding to make it look new and fresh. And we always go with a dark green and a light green is what we go with. Those are the cheapest colors, and it's a standard color. They do offer a variety of other colors, though, in that product. They offer blues, purples, reds, stuff like that. And some of the colors are more expensive than others. But really, you know, it would add about $500 to the cost of a tennis court color coding. If we were planning on color coding anyway, it would only cost maybe $500 to $1,000 to get a vibrant color. So that might be a possibility for tennis courts. Basketball courts, you know, we don't object to doing that either. We think that it would add a lot of value, and it would just really make the parks look a lot nicer to do it. It just adds a cost that in the past we haven't done that before for basketball courts. Right now, all of our basketball courts are asphalt, and that's it. And then we just paint a stripe on it. And if we want to color code a basketball court, it costs about $8,500 to do so. And the cost might go up or down depending on the how good of the asphalt currently is. I mean, the worse condition the asphalt is in, the more prep work that you have to do, and the more expensive it's going to be to do that initial color coding. So again, we don't object to color coding the basketball courts. It's just a matter of, you know, do we want to budget for that and make that a park priority? So what I would recommend is, you know, if we want to discuss this in more detail and make some of these priorities, we discuss it through our bond request, which we do once a year in the spring when we bring our capital improvement projects forward, and we talk about it at that time. And it would really be up to you to decide if you want to, you know, just invest a little bit more to add the colors. It's just something that it's not free to do it, so. I guess my proposed motion would be to receive and place on file, but if you'd like to think of a different motion, I'm open to suggestions.
Alderperson LaFave, and then
I think that's a good idea, you know, to see, you don't have real figures yet, and to see what it would cost, and maybe just do something, start slow, maybe, you know, because I think that would be a good thing to do, and yeah, it just makes everything look nice, you know, for the neighborhood and for the city too. And it's a good beautification idea. So I would, you know, definitely support it, but it depends on, you know, cost. And I think, you know, just start slow. That's all I say.
all right, thank you. Alder Johnson?
I think maybe what I'm going to recommend and propose is that we kind of split this issue up. I think we're talking about two issues. It sounds like at least what's been presented to us. One is the fences, the other's been the courts. And it seems to me that the fences are just something that we can handle on a case-by-case basis. Is that a bonding issue as well?
It's a bonding issue because we only we replace fencing through our bonding request. So what we usually do is we ask for a lump sum cost to just do general fence repairs throughout the city. We don't really necessarily put a specific project to it. And we do this every few years when some of our fencing is starting to look old. You know, if you want us to delineate which fences we would recommend as part of that process, we can do it, but we usually just ask for a general dollar amount. And so really what it comes down to is if we want to go with the more, you know, special colors, which would be a special order, it just means we would be doing less fencing with that money.
Yeah, and I appreciate that insight. I guess I'm not necessarily inclined to go replacing fencing that doesn't need to be replaced right now. But I do take the issue to heart, and that is there is a huge movement nationally right now about public spaces and places where people spend time. And a big part of that is parks in your neighborhoods. And communities all over the country are making investments in our neighborhoods because, again, that's people spend 90% of their time within 5 miles of where they live. And they want those places to be warm and inviting. And so I do support the concept. I think we have to figure out the best way to do that. And so when I look at fences, I do see that as, you know, kind of something that we would address as it comes up. When I look at things like the courts, I understand the parks' perspective and take on this. I don't know that this is a parks issue when it comes to, I mean, other than having the parks as a collaborator in this. But the issue at hand to me, it seems, how do we beautify them? In which case, then, I would suggest that this is a Public Arts Commission issue. And so that would be my recommendation, is that we refer that component of the topic over to the Public Arts Commission to see what they can do in terms of partnering maybe with our neighborhood associations who might be willing to identify a park. Maybe they're willing to apply for some GBNLC funding to take on a project like this. Maybe there's a particular neighborhood association who wants to beautify their park. But I think the Public Arts Commission can be the coordinator of that effort, because it seems to me that that's the heart of what we're talking about here.
Did you want to?
So I would make that
separately
motion that
a
we refer the beautification of the courts and other amenities to the Public Arts Commission for further discussion.
Okay, motion by Alderman Johnson to refer this to the Public Arts Commission, the beautification of the courts, I guess was the discussion?
And other amenities.
Yeah, and other amenities,
Maybe you want to
right.
paint a swing set,
Right.
bathhouse, put a mural up, I don't know. But
Any discussion on that? Here they have a full-time fundraiser now.
3/4 time.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I think regarding the fencing, you had some ideas. I would mention, I know, have one project that's probably going to get a new fence on the west side of Colburn. I believe we're doing a new fence, whether it's appropriate or not. I mean, hopefully we'll go with a vinyl and just spruce it up, and maybe we can look at something there. We're replacing it anyway. And then you want it to look nice in that setting. You don't want it to be gaudy, but I'm sure there's something we can do to really look attractive.
Sure.
Is the funding to receive is there a motion to receive and place on file for this one and have staff as appropriate bring forward projects that they think would work as far as fence color? No.
We could just, I mean, it's up to you if you want to put that in the motion or not. We can just go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe receive and place on file with the understanding that as things come forward, if you think it's appropriate, you'll let us know, staff.
It's kind of up to you if you want two separate motions for this or not. Or if you want to just refer the beautification to the basketball courts
I
and
think the
other
referral kind of
amenities.
That's
serves
fine.
that purpose,
All right.
placing on
That's good.
file for the
And
fences.
then we can just work with the Public Arts Commission on a case-by-case
That's understood.
basis, whether it's the fencing or the basketball courts, and just have it in one motion.
That sounds good. Is there any other discussion on that? Those in favor?
I think we voted.
Oh, did we already? All right, well, we're done. Thank you, Paul. Keep in touch with Alder LaFave and maybe staff, because the Public Arts Commission meets regularly now, and they're a pretty good resource. I've seen their art popping up around the city, and they're pretty creative. I think we can get something going here. Thank you. Number 2, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Vanderleest that as part of the 9/11 memorial renovation, the main beam from the 9/11 towers should be returned to the original monument, which will be placed at the current location on Dousman Street. Staff, anything on this first?
No, we can
Okay.
just go from there.
Alderman LaFave, and then Alderman Vanderleest.
Thank you.
I am off today.
Gentlemen of the committee.
Oh, man, I was just taking a nap half an hour ago.
Number 2 here, this just talks about returning the beam back to the monument. If we could raise the $100,000 to renovate what's there right now. Right now, it's in disrepair. And I think the beam is the main part of the memorial. In other words, it is from the 9/11, from the towers. And I feel that part of the monument should be returned back to the original monument. There's not a lot of monuments, I think, throughout the state. I don't know how many there is throughout the state of Wisconsin. And I think this is, a plus for Green Bay that we do have one. The 9/11 memorial is, it touches a lot of people's hearts and lives. And so we do have the monument here. I think that'd be good if we can, try to raise this money, raise $100,000 and get it back into, good appearance, and, that the city can be proud of what's there. So.
Are you, Alder Vanderleest, are you looking to have the beam brought back before it's fixed?
No,
or
not,
once
in other words,
everything's
when
done?
we get the money, if we can raise the $100,000
Okay.
to do the repairs and, bring all the marble back up to whatever, and I think the Parks Department is gonna have their hand in how it's gonna be done, because they knew about what happened the first time around. It wasn't done properly, it got wet, and, so I think Dan is, familiar with what has to be done. I think the engineering department did do a study on it, and some of it was placed incorrectly how it was done, and that's why it failed so quickly. And some of the spelling and different things on the marble wasn't good, and the marble is cracked, it's in disrepair. So this would be kind of in other words, when we raise the money, then the beam would come back. That's my thought. I don't know
Questions
how
from
you
the
feel about
committee?
it.
I'm just curious what the motion would be. What would you want the committee to do, to refer to staff or have a motion?
Well, in other words, if we can raise the money, that the beam would go back to the memorial, where it was originally.
Sure.
You know,
Is that
we-
something, Dan, I'm sorry, Alderman Vanderleest, is that
Yeah, I
something-
guess I can kind of respond to that. As far as the motion, I think all you have to do is to approve the agenda item, because the agenda item was to, that as part of the memorial renovation, the main beam from the 9/11 tower should be returned to the original monument, which will be placed at its current location. So I think all you really need to do is to approve it. And to just give you a little bit more background and history on this, for those of you who weren't on the park committee then, the beam was taken down in 2017 because it was starting to rust, because it was set in an exterior application and it wasn't really protected from the elements. So it was taken down to protect it. I've been told that it's currently on display at the police department in the lobby inside. So that's where it is, and it's protected inside. And so we would have no objections if the monument gets renovated and the fundraising is successful to then place it back on the monument, as long as it's done in a way that we protect it from the elements. So we would install it differently than it was originally installed. So we wouldn't have an objection to do that when the renovations occur.
And I would think that in order to fundraise, that folks who would give money would want that, you could use that as a focal point, as you know, it's kind of an essential that the committee and then the council approve it, so that can be used as a reason. I'd be more willing to give if I knew that was the situation.
That's correct.
So unless there's any other questions or comments, I'd make a motion.
And I guess maybe the only question I would have, we don't really have a plan at this point, do we, in terms of whether it's going to be renovated, replaced?
We do actually. What was approved by the park committee and city council last year was to tackle a fundraising effort to renovate the existing memorial. We had a lot of discussion and went to several different park committees, but that was the end result. At first, the motion was to renovate it and put it somewhere else. The motion changed, and then it became, let's do a fundraising effort and try and save it and keep it in the same location and have it look identical or nearly identical to how it was originally installed. So we did allow one of the individuals from the initial fundraising effort to begin a fundraising campaign. I believe we talked about it a few months ago here at Park Committee and gave an update to the fundraising campaign. And I think that that's what we're going to talk about kind of in the next agenda item, where that sits, and Alderman Vanderleest's role in that.
Okay, and ultimately why I'm asking is I don't necessarily want to make a commitment to place that beam there if there's the possibility that the memorial could look different after. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is it's going to be the exact same thing as what's there right now, just
That is what
finished.
the committee and council voted on and approved, is to make it look identical with the same engraving, make it look the same, just take care of the cosmetic and the structural issues so that it looks
Okay.
good for 20, 50 years after it's repaired.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the request by Alderman Vanderleest that as part of the 9/11 memorial renovation, the main beam from the 9/11 tower will be returned to the original monument, which will be placed at the current location at Dowsman Street, on the condition that fundraising goals are met. I'd like to add that addition.
All right, motion by Alderman Burnett. Is there a second to that?
Second?
Second by Alderman Johnson. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And number 3, the consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Vanderleest to have bi-monthly updates every 2 months on the 9/11 memorial fundraising progress, the initial fundraising letter to potential donors to go out in the next 60 days, and the city park department to continue to assist in the effort to raise $100,000 for the 9/11 memorial renovation. Alder Vanderleest.
That's the goal, to raise the 100,000.
Yep.
And, if we can get some community support, I think we can raise that money. And anybody that's within our city or Brown County that's, interested in donating, we'll take donations of any size, and I think that we can achieve the amount. If we had, just for example, if we had 100 people that gave $1,000, we'd have $100,000. But we'll accept donation of any size. A lot of people don't have a lot of money, and whatever donation they'd want to give, that would be, any donation would be welcome. And we're hoping to raise the money. So that's it.
Have you had any contact with Barb Jacks?
I haven't had any contact with Barb Jacks about it, but she's a citizen of the area, and if she'd want to have some input, we'd be willing to listen.
Is she the only one right now that's leading that fundraising effort? And how is, and is she in charge?
I can answer
Well,
that. So
yeah.
at the last park committee where this was brought forward, where we allowed their group to fundraise, Barb Jack said that she would kind of take the initial lead on the fundraising, and then at the last park committee that we discussed it, basically she hadn't made any progress, so she requested assistance from the city, from a council member, from a Brown County board member. And at that committee, Alderman Vanderleest stepped up and he said he would help with the fundraising effort.
Mhm.
So really the two of them have to connect to kind of figure out a fundraising scheme moving forward, or a fundraising plan moving forward, and kind of determine how they're going to achieve that goal. I haven't had any recent discussions with Mrs. Jack until, since the last park committee where we discussed it, so I don't know if she's secured any fundraising since then. So I think the first step is for the two of them to get together and see where they're at and what needs to be done. I guess as far as the actual agenda item goes in your communication, I do have a few questions, and I just want some clarification here on how we're going to proceed with this. So, I guess one of the stipulations or one of the requests in the agenda item is for an update to the park committee every 2 months. I don't have an objection to that, so what we would do is we would just have you come forward with an update of where we sit with the fundraising efforts. If the committee wants to do 2 months, that's up to you. If you want to change that to a different amount of period, that would be your decision.
Is there a reason that we couldn't just include that in the monthly report?
We could just include that in the director's report as a summary, yes, and then it wouldn't have to be a formal agenda.
I mean, we're talking about $100,000. It shouldn't take that long, I guess, to raise that amount of money, if there's truly an interest from the community to do that. And so that's, I guess part of my fear right now is it just seems that the fundraising coordination around this seems a little bit loose. And there's no, at least from what I've heard, there's no time period that's been established. There's not a fundraising cabinet that's been established. It doesn't seem like there's been a lot of accountability from city staff to see updates on this. And I don't mean to suggest you're not doing your job so much as it is that I don't know that demand has been created. And so fundraising can be easy if you've got the right plan and approach to it, and as long as you've got a community that wants to support that initiative. I mean, if it's been since 2017, since this has been talked about, and we haven't made any progress, I would say something's broken in that process, and we need to figure out what that is. And if that's this committee's responsibility, I'd like to have that conversation tonight. If it's staff's responsibility, I would love to hear a report back next month on what the plan is, and what kind of time frame we're looking at.
And that's also one of the clarifications that I wanted coming out of this meeting too. For previous fundraising efforts, park staff does not typically tackle a fundraising effort. I cannot recall really ever doing that in any instance since I've been with the city. So if that is the request, we're not really set up for that. We can look at that, but we've never done it to date. As you know from Colburn Pool, we usually put it on the donors who come forward to actually create that capital campaign and actually go out into the community and try to successfully fundraise. And so, I guess that's what, when the fundraising was approved, that was the direction that was given to the fundraiser. It was, put together a fundraising packet and a strategy and get back to us with, regular updates.
Was there a
And-
deadline that was placed on that?
Well, I think everybody had an initial deadline of trying to get the memorial replaced by this year's anniversary. I think that was the initial goal. But as I mentioned, they ran into a few stumbling blocks, and the committee was never formed. I think it was just one individual. And so she was requesting help to try and get a committee and get some progress going on, and that's when Alderman Vanderleest said that he would assist with that. So,
Well, and I guess my point is, I think I certainly value and appreciate all of the interest in this particular project, but was there ever a deadline established to say, you know what, it's at some point we're going to not continue to watch a monument decay in our community if appropriate amounts of money can't be raised to fund the restoration of it? So I'm just curious if a dialogue had ever occurred that put a deadline on
I'm
this.
going off of memory, but I believe that we were shooting for ending or finalizing the campaign in June or July of this year. I think it was June, but I'm going off of memory. I don't have my minutes in front of me, but I think that was the fundraising goal when it was approved.
Okay, so that goal that date's come and gone.
Yes.
Is that monument owned by the park, or
It is owned by the city of Green Bay.
by the city of Green Bay? I mean, I'd love to hear from the other alders about, it seems to me if that deadline's come and gone, we need to take some type of action.
I want to speak with Kathy.
Alder LaFave?
I think the problem too is there wasn't a lot of publicity on it. And if there was, it didn't really state where funds could go, who to contact. I think that was the problem too. But what about the community foundation? Wouldn't that be a good start to work with them? To get this, and I think you're gonna need some good publicity on this, and where can people put the fund, where can you put your money in? Where
Well,
to
house
go? What do you-
investments, they usually don't fundraise. That's
The
not
foundation
necessarily.
will
No,
help
no,
you with the
but they,
financing.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But you need to
But-
bring them your plan and convince them to help you. They won't,
Right, just do it,
Yeah, believe me.
right. But I think it kind of helps where there's a place that people can, like.
That's some of the information that I've been talking with Dan about, as far as where we can get the money sent. If we're gonna go through the
That's-
Greater Green Bay Foundation, or if we're gonna go another route. Myself personally, I'd like to see if we fundraise for it, I'd like to see the checks come in and be in the hands of if it's the Green Bay Foundation, or if it's the City of Green Bay, whoever's gonna handle the checks that, City of Green Bay handles, it's a City of Green Bay property, and,
well,
we're
the
kind of just in the
foundation,
infancy, basically, Brian, of getting it started, and basically within the next 60 days, I hope to get some letters sent out to a lot of different individuals where we can start the fundraising and see what kind of support I can get going on it. And that's basically where we're at right now. In other words, I'm gonna I'm gonna move forward with trying to get some donors and see how it goes in the next, whether I'll know I'm sure after the first of the year, if money's coming in or if it's not coming in. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. As far as, I think the previous person, she had some money that was, raised, and somehow or another, Dan may be able to mention what went forward with the money that they had raised, and they lost the money.
Yeah, I guess I'd rather,
If we don't wanna
I'd
talk-
rather hear it directly from
Okay,
her versus,
that's fine.
because I don't know all
But
the
anyway,
details with
My thoughts are that I'll try to get the fundraising going, send out some letters, and see if we can get some support and see where we're at. And, I would say give us, a 12-month period, and see where we're at the end of the 12 months. And see hopefully we can get it raised a lot sooner than 12 months. But, I'd like to see them, in other words, you have to start somewhere. Nobody's really started and moved forward on it. So basically by, I just have to find out exactly where the money's gonna go. If it's gonna be if Dan can talk to the Greater Green Bay Foundation and find out if they would work with us on it.
Well, here's kind of a different way, a few ways we can approach it. So the question is, if somebody donates money, where does it go and who holds that money? Typically, the city does not like to take that role because of a couple of reasons. One of those is if the project doesn't happen, and we have to distribute the money back, that can be problematic. And especially if the money is being given back on a different year from when it was donated, and the person already took a tax write-off on it. That's not something the city really wants to get involved with for that reason. So one thing we've done in the past is we've worked with the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation in the past for projects, but they have to, want to do the project too, and you have to give them a presentation. And once again, that's something that the city hasn't really gone through that process before. We expect the donor groups to do that.
Okay.
So that's typically how it's been done in the past. And then the third way is if the city were to collect the funds, I guess what I would recommend is that what we're actually collecting is a commitment for the funds instead of the actual funds. So that we know how much we have and whether, and then once we hit our goal, then we'll know what our commitments are. And then we don't have to, if it doesn't happen or it doesn't move forward, then we're not actually distributing any money back to the people who gave money towards the project. All you're doing is canceling the commitment. So that might be a possibility if you want to go that route. I guess that's an option we could consider. But if we collect the money, then city staff has concerns and the law department has concerns with just accepting it, not knowing 100% that the project's gonna go forward. Obviously, everyone would love the project to go forward, but $100,000 is a big commitment for fundraising, and let's say you only collect $50,000. Then we have a tough decision to make as a city. Do we front the rest of the money? Do we continue with fundraising, or do we give the money back? And it's just not, it doesn't put the city in a great situation to collect that money and have to make that decision down the road. So
With the people committing, would that be a better way to go and have?
This is under discussion, and you have to
Well,
give it some thought.
I'm gonna defer to Alderman
Yeah,
Burnett right here.
I have some, and Dan, thank you, you've touched on a lot of the thoughts that I had. I have a little firsthand experience with this sort of thing. When Colburn Pool was in the early stages, 2002, people were aware that the pool was near the end. It caught many by surprise, so there was a lot of support within the neighborhood, within the general community, saying, let's save this pool. And we had this very loose connection of people saying, we're gonna fundraise and we're gonna do this, we're gonna have a bake sale and we're gonna do that. And Donnie, the park director at the time, I was on the council in that area, had a discussion. She said, Jesse, let's get these folks to slow down because they're doing a great thing. They're wanting to fundraise, but they have no idea how big that this project is. They don't understand the legal ramifications of donors and how to market what you're trying to do. There's got to be a cohesive plan. So this took, and Chris, you were involved with this took 6 months, a year, through almost the end of my term. Finally, what happened was Attorney Bill Vandecastle volunteered his attorney, capabilities, legal capabilities to draft a fundraising organization. And then that had immediate credibility in the community when they went and started collecting funds and all kinds of donations. And by then you took over. I stepped away, and you kind of used your expertise in this area from your experience with Rush Pool. So if the committee can't decide on action, what I would recommend is that we refer this to park staff to work with Alderman Vanderleest to come up with a fundraising plan. That means you need to find an attorney to drop the paperwork so it can be an identifiable entity, a Friends of 9/11 Memorial. I think that would gain a lot of credibility, and it would address a lot of the concerns that Dan had. What if the fundraising goals don't get met? How do we recognize gifts? All those questions that Attorney Vandecastle just laid out brilliantly for us.
That is something that the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation regularly does, is they will serve as a fiscal agent for initiatives like that, so it might allow us to avoid some of that. But I think your point of referring it to staff so that they can have that conversation with the foundation to see if that's something they'll take on.
Is that all right with you, Dan?
yes, that would be fine.
Okay, then we'll just leave it at that until we get further information.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to refer to staff to work with Alderman Vanderleest on a fundraising plan. Would that be sufficient?
Be sufficient. Chris, I got one question for you. How did the Greater Green Bay Foundation work with your organization? Were they
Well,
plus or minus?
worked with them twice, once
Okay.
with Colburn, or once with,
Fisk.
Fisk, which became the Resch, and that one was seamless. It was perfect. We fundraised the money, and they handled all the accounting of it, all the tax letters, all the reminder letters, all the collections. It was beautiful.
So they actually collected the money?
Yeah, and they held it.
Okay.
They did all the accounting work. The second time around, Mr. Vandecastle came in and laid everything out for us, and that's kind of where I started back in again, and the group decided not to form their own nonprofit, but to have Community Foundation do it again. So we had to do a presentation. Supervisor Corey Campbell and I went and laid everything out. We had to show them our timeline, how we wanted to fundraise, the goal, the plan, and convince them to help us. And they took us on, and I don't know if they're happy they did or not, but obviously they fundraised money. The project didn't go forward, and they were stuck with a large amount of money that had to go back. And so hopefully that won't be an obstacle this time, but different project, and
All right, thank you.
we just have to go and sell it. That's fine.
Alder Burnett, if I could maybe offer, because I don't think the motion's been seconded yet, and I'd like to maybe offer an amendment to that, I don't know if 30 days is soon enough to come back to this committee with a report on what the plan is. Because again, my concern is we still have a monument out there that is in disrepair. And I don't want to leave it out there any longer than it needs to. And at some point, if we can't raise the money, we need to make a decision about the future of that monument.
I'd like to amend my motion to add a 30-day report back to the Parks Committee.
And then I would second that.
An motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson. And do you have the motion, Dan?
Yes.
Basically to have staff work with Alderman Vanderleest and other interested parties to bring back a plan in 30 days? Yes. Okay, fair enough.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll gladly help with you too, but
Thank you
I
very
think we
much.
just need to get it going. I think even the mayor mentioned at some point he would like to see it in place by next 9/11. I can't remember if it was before council meeting, but he had mentioned that as well, so
That'd be the goal.
maybe he'd be willing to help you.
Okay,
All
thanks
right.
a lot for the information. Thank you very much. Jeff.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Alderman. Number 4, consideration with possible action on accepting a donation from the Green Bay East Side Youth Baseball Group for infield and irrigation improvements to the ball fields at East River Optimist Park.
Okay, I will cut this one off here. So the Green Bay Eastside Youth Baseball Group approached the city and requested approval to donate funding towards the replacement of infield mix at both ball fields at East River Optimist Park. So what they're proposing to do is to donate $15,000 towards the purchase of the materials of the infield mix. And then park staff will actually purchase the materials, and most of the work actually installing it will be done by park staff to replace the infield mix, but we might actually contract out a small portion of it to a contractor who's more suited for that type of work. So we would anticipate that the total project cost would be approximately $20,000. And so the remaining $5,000 that would be needed would just be taken out of existing park accounts. And so we wouldn't have to ask for any more funding to accomplish this project. And because the infield mix costs a little bit more than what they originally thought that they were going to donate towards, what they will be doing is they kind of pulled the request to donate for irrigation. So we might look at that at a later date, but right now they don't have the funding to do any irrigation out there. So right now it's a donation of $15,000 for us to put towards the infield mix. So we do have a representative from the group that's here to speak on this. If you'd like to open the floor, that's up to you.
Move to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Johnson, second by Alderman Burnett to open the floor for interested parties. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Yeah, please step forward, name and address.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name's Eric Hunter, 2406 Heather Court. I am the Vice President of the Eastside Youth Baseball League. And we've been working diligently the last few years to make improvements to our fields over here at Optimus Park, and got a couple projects that we've just completed, some new batting cages, dugouts, and we're trying to make what we have the best. We're competing against other areas that have big fourplexes and giant concession stands and bathrooms and stuff like that, and we've got our Two Diamond facility over here, which is great. So we're just trying to make some improvements, like I said. Working with Dan, I've only been working with him or talking with him for a few months, but it's been great. I think the relationship's been good, and we've been taking suggestions from him or from the entire Parks Committee really, to find out what the best solution would be to improve our infields. Right now, I don't even know what's on it right now, Dan. Dirt.
Yeah, it's old. It hasn't been
So,
fixed up in a while.
yeah, so I don't even know when the last time it was repaired. I played my youth baseball there when I was a kid, and I'm 40 now, so. But there are several things, just better playing surface, better drainage, improve the safety of the field just for these kids. I mean, that stuff, once it rains and then dries out, it's like concrete. The base anchors aren't even. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and water's a huge thing. The field kind of sits low. It's got some lips and basically just corrals water onto it, so that causes quite a few rainouts, a lot for fall ball season as the last couple of weeks. And it'll look better. You know, we're looking at a couple different options for colors and the infield, so we just really want to keep moving in the right direction. We've got a great board of directors that's been very active in trying to make the parks better, try to attract more kids, more families to our league. So this is just the latest project that we're working on.
One is I just thank you. I mean, this is great when you see community members that come together and put in a lot of time and effort and really want to make improvements to the spaces that are meaningful to you. So we appreciate that. One question. Would you like to help raise money for 9/11?
As my wife likes to say, we have a volunteering problem, so we're raising money, volunteering at school, scouts, baseball, all kinds of stuff, athletic boards. So, but no, I appreciate that. But yeah, we're just we're not looking for a handout. We're just trying to make an investment as a league, and hopefully, like Dan said, we have a proposal to do it the right way, and the proposal we were going to invest in, I don't want to say it was the wrong way, but we can really get a lot done with this new thing. We just need a little bit of help. So we're just asking to meet us somewhere and try to get it done. Maybe, hopefully this fall.
So that's a yes to the 9/11.
That would be that.
I'll just echo Alderman Johnson, thank you. We really appreciate donors, especially in parks. I mean, it's how we get a lot of our things done. And I know beautification and the east side are two words that don't go together, but we could certainly try. Being a west sider. I
getting there.
I played a lot of baseball over there at those fields, so they could use some in my youth, yeah.
Yeah, it's come a long way, it really has.
It's gonna look beautiful. Is this part of the whole project with the new parking lot?
It will be added to that project now, yes.
Okay, good. That's gonna be great. Thank you.
Yeah, it really will be.
Any other questions?
Motion to return to regular order.
Motion to return to regular order. Alderman
Second.
Burnett, second. Alderman Johnson, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I do have a question though. A question I guess would be for Dan or maybe you as chairman. I didn't see any documentation or anything. The motion itself, consideration of possible action, accepting of donation, it doesn't say
Yeah,
that.
what I would recommend for the motion is to approve the donation of $15,000 from the Green Bay East Side Youth Baseball Group for the purchase of infield mix at East River Optimist Park.
Okay, I'll make that motion. Was there a reason why it wasn't included in the agenda?
At the time, we were still kind of working through what
Okay.
what was available for the donation, and we were kind of deciding if irrigation was part of it or not.
Okay, that's fine.
So-
I'll make the motion. You see this?
Alderman
I'll second
Burnett,
that.
second by Alderman Johnson. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This goes to council next week on Tuesday.
Great.
I can't imagine council saying no. Pretty sure it'll be unanimous, but it could be wrong.
Full moon that night?
What's that?
Is there a full moon that night?
Yeah, right. You never know. Thank you.
And John's getting his publicity out
Thanks.
there.
Oh,
right
good,
now,
well, that's
so.
good, that's what we need.
Yeah.
Number 5, consideration with possible action on the approval of the funding sources for the installation of the Ferris wheel and a portion of the boardwalk pier at Bay Beach Amusement Park.
Okay, so I have included in the agenda packet 2 different graphics, and so these are, the first page is actually the construction documents of what we're going to be building as part of the Ferris wheel site work project, and then the second page is kind of a 3D rendering of what we're going to be building. And part of it, why I included this is it shows how the pier is going to be constructed, but more importantly, it kind of shows what we have to build as part of this Ferris wheel project, because once the Ferris wheel is built, it'll be in the way of getting some of the pier and boardwalk stuff done at a later date. So, at the last park committee, you approved the transfer of all available 2018 Bay Beach revenue from the Bay Beach 214 operations fund to the Bay Beach 436 capital improvements fund to pay for the site work associated with the Ferris wheel donation. Since that time, it's been a good month since our last meeting. We've been working very closely with the engineering consultant to complete the design. And through the design process, our consultant determined that portions of the new pier and portions of the new boardwalk will need to be installed as part of the Ferris wheel project due to the proximity of the wheel. The wheels, like I mentioned, the wheel's going to be in the way, and we will not physically be able to build a portion of the pier once the wheel is installed. So, of course, this added more cost to the project to include that in there. So right now, the project is currently out to bid. It was advertised last week for construction, and bid opening is scheduled for October 9th. What we're anticipating is that the entire project will likely cost more than what we earned in revenue out at Bay Beach for 2018. So what we're asking for is that any expenses over our revenue for this year, we charge the $5 million in bonding that was set aside for the beach and pier and boardwalk project. And so because we're building a portion of the boardwalk and a portion of the pier, and that is adding cost to this project, staff feels that that's an acceptable ask. But that's what we're asking for. And I guess if you want to talk about it, I'd be more than willing to answer any more questions that you might have on this.
Gentlemen, Alder Johnson?
So, would it be safe to presume then that the expectation is that you're going to need to use some of 2019's income to cover this additional expense?
No,
And you're
because
using the bond to mortgage it?
No, because we would have had to have built this anyway as part of the pier and boardwalk project. It's just, it would have waited, originally we were planning on waiting to do this work for these sections until the actual project of the beach, pier, and boardwalk project, the entire project's being built.
Okay,
So
I'm
now
sorry,
what
I
we're
understand
saying
that.
is a portion of it needs to be built early. So if it exceeds our dollar amount of what we have in revenue for this year, we're just asking to tap into that $5 million just to build the portions that we have to because of the wheel.
So we've already bonded that $5 million,
Yes,
and it's
correct.
sitting in a bank account somewhere?
It is sitting in a park account, and city and Bay Beach revenue is paying off that bond request on a year-by-year basis. So we
That's
haven't,
fine.
we haven't made the initial payment yet because we just bonded for it this year, for this spring.
And I don't mean to go too far off the rails on this, but when do you expect to spend that $5 million? Is that,
Our plan is to do construction on the beach, the boardwalk, and the pier next year. So we'll do the engineering over the winter with construction starting next year.
is there a reason we didn't bond for it next year?
I'm trying to think. We talked about that. I'm trying to think.
Part of it were the grants, right?
Yeah, part of it was the grants, and you're correct. So we applied, as part of the funding package, there was $5 million in bonding, $1 million in fundraising that the mayor was going to tackle, and then $1 million in grants. And so the concern was if we didn't bond for it initially, then the grant programs wouldn't might not think that the city's really committed to the project because that's a substantial investment. So by bonding for it, prior to that, we could put that in our grant request that a large amount of the funding's in place. We just have this small amount that we have to get in grants and fundraising. And so basically that looks favorably upon grants when you can say that the majority of the funding's in place. So that was, I think you're right, I think that was the primary
Couldn't we just have
reason.
passed a motion that said we'll take out bonding in 2019? And wouldn't that commitment have been just as good? My concern here is we're spending interest on a year's worth of, $5 million bond and nothing to show for it.
And I think part of that concern was it was gonna be a new council coming into next year. And that might have played a role into it, into the decision to bond.
It's unfortunate that politics is playing a role on sound fiscal management for the city, but, yeah, I mean, it's too late. I'm just trying to better understand what happened there, but, all right.
So, but like I said, with that $5 million bond, it doesn't go on to the taxpayers, so the revenue at Bay Beach will pay that off until it's paid off. We'll pay the yearly payments on it.
Do we know where fundraising's at? Any idea?
It's well underway. I guess I'm not at liberty to really give you that update. I know the mayor will be giving an update at some point in the near future. But I will tell you that fundraising is well underway, and it's been successful so far.
There's somebody who would help with the 9/11 memorial. Gentlemen, what are your wishes?
So, I mean, if you're open to it, I guess I do have a proposed motion, and that would be to approve using the 2018 excess revenue from Bay Beach, and if necessary, a portion of the approved 2018 bonding for the installation of the Ferris wheel and a section of the boardwalk pier at Bay Beach Amusement Park.
If I could, I'm
Sure.
A little uneasy about it. On one hand, Bay Beach is such a great track record. Your staff does an outstanding job. The community support is there. It's new. It's changing for the better. But I think this makes me a little nervous that these pieces aren't. A vote was made previous to this council with anticipation, and now it kind of sets everything all out of whack. And you take an institution like Bay Beach that, for the most part, has been meticulously ran, and you start doing stuff like this. For me, it's a concern, because it's almost like if the projections aren't met, things don't go as smoothly as possible with the rest of the project, fundraising goals aren't met, and it's sort of like the first domino of something that could lead to a bad effect. And so I'm uneasy. I generally support the motion, again, due to the track record and the community support of Bay Beach, the fact that we're going to bring a Ferris wheel here that's going to be incredible for the community, and the buzz is going to be there to generate the revenue and all those things, but I'm just uneasy, just so you know.
And I can, report back, the final numbers at a later date if that helps. So that you know where it came in at and where the money is coming from.
Do we anticipate the entire project to be more than the 5 million, or is that still looking like it can be within scope?
Well, the total project was 7 million.
7, okay.
And so we haven't completed all of the engineering yet. So basically, like I said, our consultant will be doing that engineering this winter for construction next year. So once we get a little further along in the design, we'll know where we sit with that project and the expenses. But right now, I'm under the assumption that, we're still fine within budget for that project. And
So-
we can always kind of, there's ways to, if we need to, I'm not saying we're gonna do this, but if we need to, what we always do in any project is we look at, if we're over budget, is we look at ways to scale back, we look at ways to phase it. I mean, there's different options we can look at during the design phase if we get to that situation. And we look at that for any project that we work on. It wouldn't just be exclusive to the beach project. We even looked at it as part of this project. Do we really need to add the pier and the boardwalk in as part of this project, or can it wait? And, unfortunately, it needs to be put in. But, with any project, we have a budget that we try to design to. And, the beach one will be no different.
So in essence, what you're asking, right now, we had money for the Ferris wheels, and we were gonna do the boardwalk part next year.
Correct.
And you're just saying, well, we have to do this part of the boardwalk because it's immediately in front of the Ferris wheel, so we need to tap into some of that money for right now because we don't have it immediately. So
Correct, and
whether we
also-
spend it in spring or now.
Correct, and also a small portion of the pier. So this,
Yeah.
what we'd be doing for the pier is the initial footings here and the initial footings here, and then a portion of the concrete in this location. So yeah, those were not, when we brought the project forward a month ago, when we looked at the budget, that was not on the engineer did not tell us that that was going to be necessary, because we were still kind of fairly early in the design process at that time. And as we started working through the details, we figured that out.
Alderman Burnett, then Alderman McLean.
What's the profit or revenue stream for Bay Beach over the last 5 years? What's the trend?
Well, I don't have all of those numbers, but I will tell you that in 2017, we transferred $700,000 over to build our concession stand project. So last year, our revenue after all expenses was paid, our excess revenue was approximately $700,000. Now, the season is still going on. We still have another weekend or two out there, and then we're gonna open for one weekend in the fall, in October, for a Halloween weekend. So I don't have the total numbers for where we're sitting this year,
How is it compared to
but
the last
it's
year?
probably gonna be fairly comparable to last year.
Okay. So with
Exact numbers I can't.
that's fine. So with the and getting a little off course here, right? So bear with me. So I'm not suggesting anything other than what's going on in my head. But my I guess if I was cynical, I would say with all the attractions and all the different rides, on one hand, we're doing that to keep the park new and the interest there in the community, attract tourists, all that. But at some point, do you feel that with all the new rides and attractions, are we going to be kind of cannibalizing the existing riders for the other rides? Like at some point, are we gonna just run out of people to draw in? And
That's a good question, but we have not been seeing that today.
okay,
So, when it gets to that point, we may have to reevaluate, do we add another ride or do we put the money into infrastructure? I mean, we do keep very close track throughout the entire season on our total ridership for every single ride out there. So we can tell you pretty much on any given day how we compare to previous years for every single ride. So we do keep track of that, and what we're finding right now is every time we add a ride, we actually increase our net profit out there. And it's been continuing since the Zip and Pippin was put in. Every ride we add, that has been the case, and every amenity we have put in. Now, obviously, I can't speak to the future as far as whether or not we'll get to that point, but we're not seeing that right now. What we're seeing is increased people out there.
if I could,
year to year.
Chair, in a future meeting, if perhaps under director's report or an agenda item, you could just have a short presentation. It would take no more than an hour to prepare, just so we have that basis because of the growth out there. We want to make sure that we can.
What we typically do is, we usually give one presentation on Bay Beach, so it's after the season is done and we know the total numbers, and when we pick the projects for the following year. So with the revenue. So whatever revenue we made for the year, what are we gonna put it towards next year? Now, in this case, so we usually do the presentation usually in, I don't know, January, February, somewhere around there. Now, in this case, we're spending all of our revenue this year on the Ferris wheel project. So we can still have the presentation and give you the numbers and the dollars of what we've made, because we usually make that part of the presentation. We just won't be asking for approval to do any projects because we're spending all that money in this project. And that was the approval that you gave at the last park committee. But yeah, we do that every year and we'll continue to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
And we kind of give a history too of where we're at and where we're going.
Two things.
Personal faith?
Dan, are you starting some of that preliminary construction this year yet, or is it spring?
It will be this year, so basically bids are due October 9th. Hopefully we have some good bids, and we are going to get a contractor there, award the bid ASAP, get a contractor there right away. And the wheel is actually going to be delivered probably in mid-January. So we have to get the footings in prior to that. So that's kind of why we're kind of rushing through this right now, as far as getting the approvals for the funding now versus waiting for the bids to come in. Because it will take about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to actually install the footings, because those are piers that go down to bedrock. So the piers are going down like about 160 feet, and we have to do, I think, 16 of those. And then once you pour the concrete on, you have to let the concrete cure for 30 days. So, you know, there's time to get it in and still make it in time for the delivery of the wheel in mid-January, but we're cutting it close.
So the wheel will, the wheel's just delivered in January, it's gonna go.
It'll go up right away when it's delivered, and then as soon as spring comes, we will do all of the rest of the site work. So that'll be the queue lines, that'll be all the utilities, the fencing, stuff like that. That'll all be done, you know, March, April, and May is when that work would be done.
Yeah.
And then we plan on opening it when the park opens for the season.
Okay, because I want to bring this back to the neighborhood association too. Could I have some of the diagrams and you can give me some?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you some other ones that are probably better images than this.
So that you can see
Just
that.
something that are a little
Okay.
prettier
Okay,
picture for you.
and then I wanted to mention about the attendance and the rides. I want to compliment the park finally is putting in the rides for the, for teenagers and adults. Before, we didn't have many of those. And I would say, I knew people that said they weren't gonna go there anymore because their older kids don't wanna stand in line for an hour for the Tilt-A-Whirl, something that's a little bit more for older, you know, kids and that. But since they've done that, I've seen the people coming at the park. I just walk over, you know, we walk through once in a while and on weekends, and a lot of times we try to go later so that people are starting to leave so we can go on the rides, because there's a lot of people waiting to go on the rides, and it's, I think the attendance has really kept up there, and it's increased now with these new rides, and I think bringing the Ferris wheel, something else that is really unique, like the Zip and Pippin was, and the Zip and Pippin still has a lot of people waiting in line
All right, I'm gonna-
to ride it.
I think we could talk about that maybe another time, just
So,
for
but
right
I
now, we're
mean, just
talking
wanted to
about the
say for
Ferris
my
wheel. and-
observation
Sure,
too, that
certainly.
I think that this is a good idea with the Ferris wheel.
Wouldn't want to cut off alderperson mother-in-law. That's your new title,
Mother-in-law.
alderperson mother-in-law. All right. Any
No,
other
that's
questions
fine.
from the committee?
Last thing I want to do is kind of hold up the installation of a Ferris wheel because of, you know, uneasiness on some part of the process, which you explained, so it makes sense. If I could read back that motion.
Sure, how I have it written right now is to approve using the 2018 excess revenue from Bay Beach, and if necessary, a portion of the approved 2018 bonding for the installation of the Ferris wheel and a section of the boardwalk/pier at Bay Beach Amusement Park.
I'd be
Could I
comfortable.
just ask one more question?
Sure.
Yes.
Is there any advantage or disadvantage of having all of this come out of the bonding money and having us continue to hold the Bay Beach income? You know, are there different restrictions on those pools of money that might create more flexibility or more restrictions for us as we move forward with this project?
I guess I'd have to have more conversations with the finance director on that. I guess the issue is, the only issue that I can see is the $5 million was set aside specifically for the beach pier and boardwalk project. So I don't know if you can put that towards other amenities at Bay Beach or not. I can't answer that question without asking the finance.
But what you're asking for is boardwalk, right?
Well, we could use the money for the boardwalk and pier,
Mhm.
but it wasn't set aside for the site work. So I think what you asked is, can
I
we
see.
use
Okay.
the $5 million for the entire project? I don't
You're
know if
splitting.
we can
Yeah.
do that.
I wasn't envisioning the split like you
Yeah.
just explained it. Okay. And and again, I was just thinking like, geez, if bond money has to sit in account where maybe the income from Bay Beach could be invested, for example. And that's the part of the city finances that I don't fully understand yet. I was just looking to see if that consideration had been made, but it sounds like it might be a little immaterial anyway, once you split it up.
I can't answer.
Okay. I'm good with it as it is, just wanted to ask, make that motion.
Sure. Motion by Alderman Burnett,
I'll second it.
second by Alderman Johnson, under discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Informational Director's Report, updates, recent activities.
Just give me a moment here. So just a few things just to comment on here. So storm cleanup has been a priority for the Forestry Department with the 2 storms we had. We have a lot of trees down that has taken up a great deal of time for our staff. Construction will begin soon on adding the sports lighting at Beaver Dam Ball Field. So we've been working on that project for a number of years. The last remaining piece to getting it completed was installing the sports lighting out there. So that will be kicking off any day now. Do want to touch bases on the elevator renovation. So we had money set aside, I believe it was right around $430,000 that we bonded to renovate the City Hall elevators. That was designed and bid out. Bids came in extremely high over our budget, so we weren't able to award that bid. So Public Works will now kind of determine next course of action of how we proceed with it. So I know that that's a project that we've been wanting to do for quite a number of years.
Will that be coming to an agenda, either improvement services or parks?
It would go to INS,
Okay.
and so that would not go to Parks.
Okay.
But I don't know if it has to go on an agenda if we're not proposing as a staff to award the
Okay.
bid.
Maybe even an update
I
to
don't
the
think
agenda.
it goes to an agenda.
I know it's been asked about a lot.
Yeah.
I
So as a
definitely-
staff, we're not recommending it because it was so far over our budget.
I'll do it.
Right, I would like the elevators fixed, so I don't end up getting stuck in again.
So I think what'll happen is Public Works engineers will.
didn't
You're the one who mentioned it, joked about it.
So
Okay,
Public
good.
Works engineers will kind of research it and come back with a recommendation of how to move forward. Colburn Pool, just a quick update there. So we have 2 projects that we're working on. One is bidding out completing the engineering documents for all the mechanical works and all the mechanical in the basement, replacing that, and also installing a pool liner and fixing the gutters. Our consultant has been working diligently on that. We're probably at about 90% complete with the plans and specs on that. And then city staff is actually putting together the specs and the plans for bidding out the cosmetic renovations to the building. And again, that's probably at about 75% complete would be my guess. So some of the work will be done this winter and the rest of the work will be done in the spring. Our staff has already gutted a portion of the building as far as the front counter, the main office, and all that equipment in there. We also started renovating the bathrooms, and some of that work, our own park carpentry crews are going to do the work on that. So the 4th annual Fit in the Parks was a huge success. So we saw an average of 30 people each week at these classes. Yoga on the Deck, which was our premier class, it averaged 200 guests per week. And the largest group was 257 attendees to that. Also, the Walk for Wildlife was a huge success at the Wildlife Sanctuary. That was held 2 weekends ago. They raised $17,400, which was an increase of $3,400 over last year. There were 560 walkers and 81 volunteers for that event, so it was a great success. This weekend, we have the Autumn Adventure event at the Wildlife Sanctuary on Saturday from 10 to 2. Again, that's a free event for the public that's sponsored through the Optimist Club. It's a great event. So if you can go out there to see that, that'd be great. And then also just wanted to touch bases on a staff member who retired. So Karen Selzer, she was a cleaner in City Hall for 42 years. She just recently retired a few weeks ago. And I did want to just thank her for her years of service to the city. So that concludes my report.
If I could, I just wanted to thank you, Dan. I know you've been burning some midnight oil here lately. I don't know how many times I'll send an email at 11 or 12 at night and I'll get an answer back right away. So you're definitely putting in a lot of hours and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you. You really, I know you have a lot of projects at plate. So what are the wishes of the committee?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Burnett, second by Alderman Johnson to receive and place on file. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Hold on, I have to get that last motion.
Oh.
approved or what?
The adjourn one?
Yes.
Johnson,
Hold
Burnett?
on a second.
You want to leave?
Okay. I got it now.
Leave meeting. Don't forget to leave meeting. I always forget. Thanks, Dan.